Welcome back everyone to another Steel Division Normandy 44 replay cast. This time it is going to be a 3v3. And the 3v3 is between Brother Pedro playing as Guards Armored, Ball V playing as the 1st Panzerna, so the Poles, and Tarumi 4021 playing as the 2nd Infantry. On the opposing side we're going to have Aksuru playing as the Panzer Lehr, Hanan playing as the Luftlande, and CW Scherer, that's a weird name, playing as the 116th. So, a couple of light divisions, the Panzer Lehr, of course, very strong, and then on the other side we have quite a bit of armor and a fairly good infantry division. Pedro starts off with 3 half-tracks, 6 half-tracks, 2 Cromwells, one of them a command vehicle. His teammate is going to start off with a priest, jeep, some troops. On the other side, a Cromwell 6 with the HE gun and a lot of troops. So it looks like the allies are really going for the infantry superiority. Of course, we have the town in the center, so that's pretty important to capture for our 2nd infantry player. Yes, that is Tarumi indeed. I'm guessing that most of these are, well, some of these are going to be flamethrower troops to help out push in the town. And of course, interestingly, the Luftlande player isn't bringing out any mortars or artillery weapons in any case to help out against the town. We'll see how that works out. On the left side we have the Windhund player, and that's of course very strong with the Martyrs and the medium tanks. Interestingly, he also goes for a Gepard, which is 60 points of anti-air. Not really quite sure what he expects these allied players to bring out in terms of planes at the start. I'm guessing that it is more meant as an anti-infantry choice. Of course, a bit of recon coming in from him. Looks like the allies are really kind of lacking in recon. We have 1 jeep with a recon unit by Tarumi, and really nothing else. So really they're kind of relying on the fact that, of course, the lines of sight on this map are kind of limited. As you can see, there's some areas in which recon is useful, but a lot of areas in which it actually isn't. On the right side, Aksuru has quite a few vehicles. Of course, Panzer Lehr, he's going to be more important later on than at the start of the game. And yes, lots of infantry coming in from Brother Pedro. That should be able to overwhelm, in a confined space, the opposing sides' vehicles. Especially with the Martyr being like 110 points. That's still a fairly high chunk of points to be spending on a vehicle that isn't going to be that useful against infantry. It does have HE rounds, but only 10 of them, so it is going to be of limited usefulness. Now we see the first engagements. Of course, Panzer III with the command air radius is actually going to be very useful in this fight for our Windhund player. In the center, of course, we have the Rangers with flamethrowers pushing back all of the German infantry units in the center with the help of the M4 DD Sherman. Of course, very strong vehicle in the early phases. And now on the right side, it seems like the Strelci from Ball V are getting some fire from the packs and the half-tracks, but it looks like the right side of the map is going to be mostly a bit of a stalemate, and Ball V is focusing his forces closer to the town. So he's got the Strelci and the command unit and a Vickers, so he wants to capture this orchard so that he has a bit of a better firing position to attack enemy troops coming from this road. Henschel already being brought out to use against the Command Cromwell 4. This is definitely a good usage. He has to be very careful, however, if the allies should bring in any planes at the start, because the Henschel is of course very vulnerable to that. But it gets very unlucky and it does not destroy the Command Cromwell right off the bat. So of course that is going to warn the allies that that Henschel is on the field. Brother Pedro's infantry is doing quite well, but it's alone. So of course the Command Panzer III with its 50mm. Wait, I believe this is 50mm, right? Yes, it's a 50mm. With the 50mm is doing some work in pushing back the half-tracks. And of course with the support of the Germans' own half-tracks, the infantry isn't really going to be able to advance. However, the Germans are really running out of troops in the area, so they can't really push up against Brother Pedro's forces. That's pretty decent. And of course, we do see the Tempest coming in. The Henschel only destroyed a half-track. Now it's trying to take out, looks like the M4 Sherman, but it isn't going to be able to do that. And the Tempest with its 420mm cannons absolutely demolishes the Henschel, and that was absolutely to be expected. So that Henschel was a bit rash and overzealous in staying over the battlefield after first pass. Even if the Allies really didn't show any airplanes, that was just very, very interesting. That was just very, very rash, and he should have been a little bit safer. As soon as you get in the airplane, you just get it out so that it does not loiter unnecessarily over the battlefield, where it could be, of course, destroyed by anything, even ground fire. However, the Cromwells, which were the main target of the Henschel, looks like they've been destroyed. Now, the command Cromwell was taken out here. There was another Cromwell somewhere. I don't really see it. Here we have a couple of destroyed half-tracks, right? Yeah, a couple of destroyed half-tracks, but I don't really see the other Cromwell. But there were two of them, and now there are none. So, simple logic suggests that both of them were destroyed by the Martyr-Free. Martyr-Free, of course, fairly good against vehicles, but at this point, problems of the Axis really don't lie in the Allies' vehicles, but they lie in the infantry, which has taken over the forests, the central town, and on the right side it's still contesting some key areas such as this square of land. At this point, we see that Bellevue is going for some Cromwell Vs and a Stuart de Virginia command vehicle to try to reclaim the right side. Of course, this is not going to be easy because there are a couple of 50mm pack guns from Aksuru, and so of course he needs to be very, very careful. He needs to bring in some kind of artillery as soon as possible to deal with the pack guns. In the center, the Allies have control over the center, but they need to be very wary of the fact that they lack in indirect fire. So if the Germans really bring in a lot of mortars, a lot of artillery, they can push them back out of the town with some work. So of course they need to be bolstering up their defenses along the town with non-mobile troops, but they also need to get a couple of vehicles to try to push in certain areas such as this little salient, and of course try to put some pressure on the left side of the map. And of course they need to bring in some kind of artillery. These M7 DDs aren't artillery pieces, they're actually assault guns. They only have direct fire, despite what this shows. It kind of shows, you know, a indirect fire, but it actually does not have the ability to shoot over obstacles. It has to see the enemy before it can actually hit it. So it's not going to be enough for the second infantry player to Rumi to actually just fortify the town. He needs to be a little less passive, which so far he hasn't been, but he needs to not become passive and continue being an active player, helping out his allies, bringing out artillery to sort of proactively push back against the Luftlande player. And at this point, it looks like Brother Pedro on the left side is having some trouble, but very nice ambush coming in from the mortar rifleman. Takes out a command Panzer-Free. Also another Panzer-Free, an L version, is trying to push through the gap between these two wooded areas, which will not really work out in favor of the Germans because they need the infantry support, which is now coming up. We've also got a recon unit. Problem is, there's a couple of Humber Mark IIIs coming in for Brother Pedro with those very nasty autocannons and a couple of recon units, seems like, they're transporting. Of course, this is a strength of the Guards Armored Division. They do have the ability to bring in recon on armored cars. And in general, their mechanized forces are quite good. So it looks like Brother Pedro is really making use of a lot of infantry, but at this point in the game, I would have tried to bring in a little bit more in terms of armor. Especially once I saw that the Germans had lots of half-tracks on the side, because of course, you know, it's a wind hunt, so a few half-tracks are available to them. I would have tried to bring in a couple more vehicles. Of course, armored cars are fine. They're going to be able to deal with the half-tracks just fine, especially at closer ranges, as you can see. And just like that, along with the support of the mortar riflemen from the woods, he should be able to at least hold the fort. Piats being deployed against the Panzer-Free L unfortunately miss, and now with the support of the 234 scout car, that squad goes down. But there is a Lloyd carrier coming in with a 6-pounder anti-tank gun. Of course, once the anti-tank gun gets into firing position, which is going to be about here, it's going to be able to take out that recon unit quite easily. In the meantime, the autocannons are doing pretty much a number on the German infantry. However, because these Panzergrenadiers do have those Panzerfausts, the Humbers are kind of forced to retreat. In fact, they don't retreat enough. I'm thinking that the Panzerfausts are going to take out at least one of them. Although, no, they aren't in range for the Panzerfaust. They're not at 150 meters yet. They do manage to take out one of the recon units, but they eat a full burst of the autocannons and they get pinned down and surrender to the Recce. Here comes the 6-pounder. It's going to be able to destroy at least one of these vehicles. No, it does not, because it misses. But it does provide quite a bit of panic on that Panzer III. In fact, enough panic that the Humbers decide to move in. Now, if a third... No third shot comes in thanks to the support of the autocannon from the armed car. But now the Humbers are able to come in and panic and destroy, in fact, the Panzer III. Now they should be able to deal with the rest of the German vehicles just fine. Problem is, this motor rifle leader, which was holding the other hinge of the flank that's kind of now holding up against these two German vehicles, is now falling. So the Germans will not be surrounded once the Humbers actually come in the area. So Brother Pedro is strengthening up his sort of right flank, which is good because he does not want to let his ally be flanked by lots of infantry and vehicles from the Germans, which is supporting the center push of the Allies. Now, the Allies in the center have been doing well since the start of the game, but they're still putting up some pressure, which is, of course, really, really good. They haven't really been targeted by too much artillery from the German side, which is interesting. I would have thought that some, at least observation artillery would be called in by Hanan, or is that Banan? Yeah, it's actually Banan. So Banana didn't call in anything. He's focusing on the airplanes, which is a risky strategy because, of course, it's pretty easy to lose airplanes. Here comes a P-47 Gabby, so the Ace. Ace comes in and is going to be quite a bit of a danger to the Henschel. Of course, there is an Me-109 covering the Henschel, but the Me-109 might get shot down by this Mustang. The Mustang actually goes for the Henschel, and the Henschel goes down. This is why I never really trust escort fighters with bombers. It is much, much easier for the fighter to outmaneuver the enemy fighter, or even just prevent it from being a target, and go after the slow and maneuverable bomber, than for the enemy fighter to, of course, get a beat on your own hunter. So, of course, that would be pretty bad. And here comes the surrender of Banana. That really hurts the Germans. At this point, they have a center player that was sort of what they relied on to get themselves back in the game, because the flanks are doing just fine for the Germans. Of course, there are some troubles on both the left and right side, but the Germans overall aren't doing all that bad on these areas. But now, with the Luftland player gone, yeah, they're pretty much exposed to attacks from at least two players. That looks like Me-109 doing a very nice job of taking out one of those allied fighters. Might be able to escape even. Of course, at this point, I'm guessing that this Me-109 is going to be going in the control of, well, of the Devil, because it's dead. But if it had escaped, it would have gone into control of one of the other German players. So it seems like the air superiority will be for the Allies for the rest of the game. I don't think that the other players on the German side really have many planes. The Windhund player may have some, the Panzerlehr player also may have some, but definitely not in the numbers and quality of the Luftland. And either of them have better things to think about, aka their own flanks, which are now going to be threatened by flanking attacks by the second infantry player in the center, because now he doesn't really have many enemies to deal with. He's launching immediately a full-on push, which is kind of succeeding in the center. The German units are being completely wiped out and forced to retreat. On the left side, there's more Germans defending the areas, so of course that's not going to be quite as easy for the Allies to cut through. But once the center falls, the left is going to crumble like a house of cards. And at this point on the right side, it also seems like the Panzerna player is really starting to up the ante, coming in with some Stuarts. Right now, we have a Befis Panther from Akasuru, but it's not placed in any position where it can actually fire on the enemy. Maybe he's actually afraid of something like retaliation from the Allied Air Force, which has now shot down yet another German fighter. So maybe he's afraid of Allied Air Forces, maybe he's afraid of AT guns hidden in the areas, but that just means that that's a 200 vehicle, right? Yeah, it's 280 pointer, so almost 300 points of vehicle aren't being used, which is definitely a bit of a shame, because that's quite a lot of points. For a Panzerlehrper, I believe that's like 2 minutes of income, right? Why does it not show the income? But I believe the Panzerlehr in Phase B gets something like 120. I might be horribly wrong, but yeah, something like it must be. Anyway, yeah, that's not very good for the Germans at all. At the same time, looks like an artillery piece has been fired on the left against Brother Pedro, a Nebelwerfer most likely. Oh no, a Panzerwerfer. So even more dangerous due to the fact that they can run away when actually targeted. And of course, Brother Pedro's coming in fast and hard with all of his infantry. The problem is the Panzerwerfer barrage really seemed to damage his infantry. And of course, all these are German vehicles. So those are the remains of the German push on the area. Thanks to both the air superiority and the superiority now in terms of vehicles, once this Panzer IV-H hits, it's going to be different. But with the superiority temporarily in terms of vehicles, Brother Pedro is able to push through and do quite a bit of damage against the scattered German defenders. Very good job from these pioneers, ambushing the Humber Mark III armored car and taking it out with their satchel charges. At this point, however, I am really thinking that the Germans don't have much of a response to what the Allies are doing. There's a Zviadovsky recon that's been spotting the Command Panther. The Command Panther has, looks like, neutered the Stuart. And the response from the Panzerlehr is a ton of Bedford trucks with infantry. I wonder if these are assault troops trying to take care of these orchards and maybe get a ambush off on the Panther. There's a Cromwell 6, but the Cromwell 6 would be best served actually getting on the other side of this wooded area, because of course they don't really want to give up this vehicle to the Germans. That would be quite a... Oh, there goes the Cromwell to the Panzer Grenadiers. Very good job. But yeah, I'm thinking that this is not going to be easy for the Germans to get back from, because as you can see, the 2nd Infantry player has been pushing through the center, putting pressure on the flanks of both German players. And thanks to that, also Ball V was able to push quite a bit. Of course, the VP game is in favor of the Allies. They have 61%, which means a +2. They're at 997, in fact 1,000 right now, and so they're going to be able to gain a total victory. They haven't lost even 1 VP to the Germans. So of course, they're fairly safe. And Brother Pedro on the left side, looks like his strategy in the early game of going for lots of infantry didn't really work out too well. But he was able to, after some tries, get the right combination of vehicles and infantry, and now he's pushing through. He's got a Firefly, which is of course a very, very strong vehicle to destroy enemy armor. And so right now the Panzer IV-H won't really stand much of a chance against it. At this point, it also looks like Command N4A1 and a couple of M16 flak half-tracks are going to be able to push through, thanks to, of course, the fact that there are no more opponents for Terumi in the center. He can deliver more forces to the left side of the map to help out against Hanan and what's left of Banana. Right, sorry, that was Banana. I still read Hanan because the text is kind of small. Yeah, Banana, and on this side we have CW. So, of course, all of their forces in this little orchard area are being completely forced to retreat, and there's really nothing after this little position that they can use as cover. There's a bit of a tree line some like 400 meters back. Yeah, 400, 600 meters back, but of course, before the infantry even gets there, I'm thinking that all of these jeeps and vehicles from the Allies will be able to just smash them while they escape. So this is not going to be good at all for the Germans. It is not a safe retreat at all. Meantime, it looks like the Allies have been able to push through on the right side just a tiny bit, but the First Panther is still a bit of a problem. The Streltsy can't really do anything against it because they don't have any AT weapons. There is a Flak 88 on the field for Akasaurus. that's not the best choice, in my opinion, because of course, when you're facing tons of infantry, like Ball V as seems to be fond of doing, Flak 88 doesn't really do too much. I mean, I don't know, like, I was just thinking about it, and it's just like, yeah, of course it does have some HE value, but with all the points that you've invested into it, 135, no, that's just not the best possible choice. I would have gone for lots of infantry to cover the Panther. Because right now, as you can see on the right side, Akasuru doesn't even have one unit of infantry to cover his Panther. Of course, that is a very, very, very scary proposition, because what if there was just a infantry unit for the allies hiding in this apple field, right? Because the Panther is just slowly trudging through, and what if there was an assault infantry, or a command vehicle, or a command unit, sorry, not a command vehicle, just hiding there, and ambushed the Panther and killed it? You have to think about these things. You have to think about all the possibilities, especially ones that are extremely dangerous to a high-value target like the Panther. In fact, the Firefly as well is kind of in trouble. I mean, we remember how, I think on the right side, yeah, on the right side, that Chroma was destroyed by the Panzerfaust Panzer Grenadiers. That's pretty much going to be the same thing happening to the Firefly. Ooh, the Firefly actually gets hit by a Panzerwerfer barrage, which might save it, because it was very close to this Sturmpioneer with Flamethrower. If the Sturmpioneer were to just come through and flank the Firefly, it would be able to easily destroy it. At the same time, Panzerwerfer doing some work against all of these vehicles, but much more than panicking, it will not be able to do. Of course, panicking is good and all, but with Steel Division especially, you need territory. You need to be able to push back against the enemy. When you're on the back foot, perhaps artillery, unless you're on the back foot in something like a town area, artillery may not be the best possible option, because you want to be able to have the combat units, the boots on the ground, to just push through and grab some territory back for yourself. This is exactly what it seems like. Well, it says Banana, but I'm guessing it's other people calling in troops. They have a 210mm Schwimmwagen, sure, but they're also bringing in the infantry to follow up on the artillery barrage, which is, of course, exactly what needs to be done. I wonder if 210mm artillery has been used yet. No, it hasn't, I don't think, because I don't really see any large concentrations of craters that could have been caused by such an artillery strike. But, of course, things can change. On the left side, we have still the Allied air swarm just coming in and destroying these convoys of German infantry that are just easy targets for bombing runs like that. And of course, this is a bit of a shame, in fact. Banana is just bringing in all these troops. Well, not Banana, again, he surrendered, so I'm guessing it's someone else with his troops. Yeah, just not really the best possible option. Of course, having a lot of troops in one area can be dangerous for the enemies. It can be quite strong. You can have force concentration. Of course, that's pretty important. But you don't want them to be blobbed up like that, because then they just become very vulnerable to artillery and airstrikes, which is exactly what the Allies are meant to do against the Germans, and exactly what they are doing. They have the 105mm howitzer from the 2nd Infantry Player, of course a very strong artillery piece, very versatile. Not the biggest caliber, but definitely quite accurate and quite quick to fire. So a pretty decent versatile piece. And of course, all of the Thunderbolts that are coming in can do both strafing runs and bombing runs with rockets and bombs against enemy troops that are huddled up. So of course, very dangerous for the Germans to huddle up into one area and just eat it like a child. Jagdpanzer IV on the left side was definitely not the best possible option against Brother Pedro's army composition, because Brother Pedro right now is going for a lot of... Whoa. He went for a Sod, which is a command vehicle with the Piats. That's an interesting little choice. I think he wants the Sod to deal with the half-tracks. I think that's a good choice. I like this unit. I don't really see it used all that often, but I like that he actually brought it out. It's a fairly quick, speedy little command vehicle. Also quite cheap with an anti-tank, anti-tank launcher. So it's not the worst thing in the world. Unfortunately, he was absolutely flattened by the Panzerwerfer barrage, which destroyed all of his infantry. looks like, except 2 units. So 2 squads right now completely pinned down and almost dead. But all the others are dead, and all of the Hummer armor cars, of course being quite light vehicles, have been completely panicked by the Panzer barrage and are now falling back with their tail between their legs, or I guess their exhaust pipe between their wheels. Anyway, ooh. The Allies also have an artillery, a xylophone, of course very, very, very dangerous against enemy infantry. From the, of course, 2nd Infantry Division. Quite the unique unit of the 2nd Infantry. And it does have the ability to fire 16 fairly high caliber 110mm rockets. The problem with the xylophone is that it's a truck, essentially, so it is very, very vulnerable to enemy counter battery, such as this FK-39 from the Germans. Of course, this is a fairly light artillery piece. It's on like 75mm, 76.2, sorry. So this is, of course, not going to be the best possible option to deal with the xylophone. But in general, it needs to be very careful of counter battery fire. At this point, with the Germans back to their, essentially, back to the ropes, that's not as much of a problem. On the right side, we have a Befehls Panther still alive, and supported by a bit of a push, it looks like, from the Germans. This Befehls Panzer IV is trying to come in. Unfortunately, CW Uror does surrender, and yeah, that's going to be about it. Another bit of an air battle. Finally, the Germans go for some more planes. Of course, in this situation, the Germans bring out some planes is good. However, this Focke-Wulf 190 is still behind enemy lines and, of course, in Allied controlled airspace. It's very dangerous to stay like this. The Henschel proved that earlier. Of course, the Focke-Wulf 190 is a bit more agile, but if a couple of Allied planes were to come in right about now, this Focke-Wulf is dead. I'm led to believe that they're all actually reloading, so very lucky for the Focke-Wulf. Another Focke-Wulf 190 by Akusuru. Still 300 points spent on Focke-Wulf 190s. At this point, can be a good idea because of all the, points that the Allies spent into their air force. But with himself being pushed back to the well, not starting area, but being pushed back quite a bit beyond the half point of the map. And with him having 2 Flak 88s, I would have gone for more ground units again. But that's just me. Of course, these 2 Focke-Wulf 190s are quite outnumbered by the Allied air forces, but they also have other targets. These 2 are bombers, and they're trying to take out the Flak 88s so that the other planes can do their other duties safely. Of course, the Ace is going to, I think, go down. Yep, there he goes, and also the 47 will go down. No, actually, the Focke-Wulf was focusing on the other plane. Mosquito comes in, drops some bombs on the Flak 88, but at this point, the Hurricane, yeah, no, it's going to escape. Another Henschel is brought in, of course, to take out, I'm guessing, these Shermans. Not the best option. I mean, we have a Panther on the field. The Shermans really shouldn't be much of a problem, so I'm not sure why a Henschel was brought in to counter those instead of perhaps coming in the center. Of course, the Henschel in the center would have been able to take out something like this M10 tank destroyer, this M41 Sherman, and help out Banana's infantry. So the Luftwaffe, of course, has a bit of trouble at long range with their infantry against vehicles. So having the Henschel there instead of on the right side where we have the Panzer layer, sorry, that would have been much, much better, in my opinion, a better use of the resources available to the Germans, which are scarce enough to begin with. At this point, however, yeah, there's really not much that the Germans can do about this. So I'm thinking that they're gonna just go down. Yeah, the only side that the Germans have that is kind of doing well is the right side of the map, which is to be expected. It is a Panzer layer player, so of course, unless he seriously screws up, the late game should be his territory. Whereas, well, the Windhund against the Guards Armored in the late game isn't really the best possible thing for the Windhund with their excessive sort of reliance on tank destroyers. On such a map, that is pretty bad, because of course the lines of sight with all these trees are quite punitive for something like a tank destroyer that wants a bit of an open field so that it doesn't get flanked. Whereas The Guards Armored, of course, with their Fireflies, their Shermans, and of course their excellent armored cars, can just come in, use their infantry, and support them with their medium and light vehicles, and just punch through the German lines quite easily. So yes, I'm thinking that that's basically about it. Yeah, yet more troops just sort of being blobbed up. This is definitely not the best possible use of the infantry that the Germans could have done. Finally, it looks like the Allies were able to bring in some artillery. It is a 155mm Sherman. And of course that is going to, yeah, almost entirely miss. But that's the end of the game. So I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you soon.